Okay, so sorry, it's always a little challenging the first day to make sure everything works, etc., and it always takes a little longer than you think. A couple quick notes before we get started. I did pass out, along with your syllabus, these little surveys that come out. The Workforce Development Department asks us to hand out these surveys every semester. I don't really know why. It has something to do with funding, but you're supposed to fill it out. Since this is, in all likelihood, your first class, you haven't filled it out yet, so you can fill it out for me. If somebody else asks you later in the week to fill one out, you don't have to do it anymore. You only have to do it once. So I'll collect those afterwards. A lot of you brought them up for me anyway, so we'll, I'll collect them and turn them in on your behalf. So this is Archie 135, Digital Tools for Designers. There are two sections of this class. This is the section that I'm teaching, but there's another one. I think it's on Tuesday, Thursday, but again, that's not my class, so I don't know much about it. You guys are here in this class. I'm excited that you're here, which is fantastic. And we're going to talk a lot about a lot of different things, which is part of the fun of this whole course. And somehow we made it to the spring of 2018. A little bit about me, just so you know my background, etc. My name is Grant Adams. I'm an associate professor here of architecture, which means that I'm a part-time faculty person. And so one of the great things about being here is you get exposure to a lot of different people. Those people, those instructors, have other jobs outside of school and teaching, and you'll get exposure to their backgrounds and their philosophies, etc. So I'm here on Mondays and Wednesdays. I teach two classes. Some of you were in my 136 class previously, so you've seen me before. I teach this class from 8 to 11 approximately, and my second class goes from 11 to 2, and my office hours are sandwiched around that time frame. I'm not here on any of the other days of the week, so it's only Monday and Wednesday that I'm here. So if you need me, that's when you're going to find me. I do, however, give you both my email, which is gadams@dvc.edu. That's my school email. I also have grant@digitaltoolsforarchitects.com. You may send me an email on the DVC, and you may get a reply from Digital Tools for Architects. They're kind of interchangeable. I use them interchangeably, but they're both there. There's also a phone number. If you need me, you can call me. I reserve the right not to answer. Seems fair, right? You can also text me on that phone number, which actually works pretty well. So I try to be available. I know I'm only here 2 days a week, but if you have some question or you're stuck on something, shoot me a text. You never know. I might be able to respond. I might not be in the middle of something, and I can give you a quick answer. Sometimes it doesn't work, because I do have another job. I do have a life, and that sort of thing. My office hours are going to be from 7 to 8 a.m. on Monday mornings, so right before this class. That's the closest I can get to this class for you. Because I have class after this class, you can't do it really after, so we're kind of stuck with that morning slot. But after my afternoon or my second class, from 2 to 3 p.m. on Wednesdays, will be in my office hours as well. It doesn't matter. If you're in this class and you want to go to that office hour, totally fine. Okay, it's not specific. Those of you that have seen me around, you know that I'll talk to you anyway. If I'm here, I'll talk to you. It doesn't really have to be, quote, during office hours. So if I'm around, I'll do it. If you really need to talk to me outside of that, we'll set up some kind of an appointment basis or whatever. We can make it work. I want to be available for you. I want you to feel comfortable and actually be able to talk to me about things. That's important. So a little bit more about myself and what my background is, why I'm here, etc. Like I said, I've taught here for 10 years, which is shocking. I don't know how those 10 years flew by, but it's actually a little over 10 years. But I got my degrees from UC Berkeley. So I got an undergraduate degree from Berkeley. That was a Bachelor's of Arts in Architecture degree, which is a 4-year unaccredited non-professional degree, for those of you that are in that kind of mindset thinking about that. For those of you that aren't there yet, don't worry, just let it go past you. Then I went back. I took a year off, and then I went back and got my master's degree from Berkeley. So I am a Master of Architecture. I got that degree. As I was finishing, as I was kind of teaching, as I was in school there, one of the great things about Berkeley's program is they let you teach as a grad student. So you get under a faculty member, and you're basically a TA, or a grad student instructor. They call them grad student instructors. And that faculty member holds your hand a bit and lets you experiment with how to teach and how to lecture and how to get in front of people and that sort of thing. Generally, you lead a small section of students, because unlike here, a Berkeley class might have 150 people. And so they have to break it down, and you might lead a little group of students of 15 or something like that. And I found that while I was there, I really enjoyed the whole teaching thing. I liked helping people. I liked teaching people about architecture, about design. And so when I got to the end of my master, there was an email that floated around that they were looking for somebody to teach digital tools for architects at DVC. And at that point, it was like, well, I don't really know what I want to do. Welcome to graduating, right? I don't know. So I said, well, okay, why not? I'll try that. I kind of like teaching. And guess what? Here I am 10 years later, still teaching. So it happens. So that's one track of my life. The other branch of my life, I decided that really being a, quote, practicing architect wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing more real estate investment, property management. I ended up getting a general contractor's license, and I'm doing building projects and that sort of thing. So it's a little bit not quite the traditional architecture path. But those of you that know the statistics, if you graduate with an undergraduate degree in architecture, more than half of you won't practice architecture. It is the way it is. That doesn't mean that it's a bad degree. I think it's a fantastic degree. In fact, I think it's a better degree than most degrees that you could get in college. And that's a whole separate topic. But if you want me to go off on that tangent someday, I will. Okay? So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm teaching. Obviously, I like it. So hopefully you'll like it or like being in this class as well. I talked too long. My slide went away for me. There we go. Sorry. There is a course website for this class. If you were in one of my previous classes, there's a handful of you. You're already familiar with it. It's digitaltoolsforarchitects.com. It is not the Insight or the Canvas system. It's completely separate from school. It also doesn't ever expire. So you become a member of it today, you get that membership forever. Assuming I'm still teaching and still paying for it. But essentially forever, right? Because I'm probably going to be teaching forever. That's my life. Anyway, it's Digital Tools for Architects. Technically, you could go to Digital Tools for Designers as well, and it would take you to the same place. But Digital Tools for Architects is the website. You're going to visit the website to view your exercises and your assignments. You're going to see all the important class information. You walk out this door, you toss the syllabus. I know you all do, right? And you suddenly need it again. You can go get it and print it. So it's all there. All the handouts that I give you are there. There's a course calendar that's there. All the exercises are posted there. You will also turn in all of your work on this course website. Sometimes I'll ask you for a physical copy of things, but most of the time you'll be posting it. And that'll be the timestamp that shows when you turn it in, etc. There are also a bunch of tutorials. There's written tutorials. There's video tutorials. There's a bunch of different ways of learning that are there. You'll notice that I tend to record all the lectures. So if you miss a class, you can go back and watch it. And we'll talk more about that in a second. The last thing is that it's a place where you're going to be commenting on other students' work. It's not possible for me to comment on everything you do in this class. There's too many things that you do. There's one of me and there's 30 of you. You do the math. Before long, there's no way for me to give you feedback. But you're going to be giving each other feedback, which is really important. And we'll talk more about this in depth as we go forward. But that's also something that you will do on the course website. It looks like this. And we'll go through in a little bit more detail what it looks like. Class schedule. I'll have all the lectures and all the exercises posted on the course calendar so you can see what's coming up. And obviously the assignments when they're due and that sort of thing. We are here Mondays and Wednesdays. Lecture is roughly 8 to 8:50-ish. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes it's a little bit shorter. When I'm done with the lecture portion of the class, we'll then take a little break, maybe 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back to the lab portion of the class. And that lab portion is the next 2 hours, so you go 9 to 10:50. You guys are let out 10 minutes before the changeover, or at least you're supposed to be. So generally speaking, you're free to go at that point. Couple notes about this. The times are loose. I recognize that it's early in the morning and you probably need coffee and you need to be awake and all that sort of thing. So if you need a little break, you go for it, get coffee. It's not the end of the world. Okay? This is not high school. It's not something where you have to ask me if you need to use the bathroom or something like that. Okay? This is a college class. You're all adults. I will treat you as adults. You treat me as an adult. If you need to go pee, go pee. You don't have to ask me. Okay? just the way it works. We already talked about Monday, 7 to 8 is my office hour in the morning. Wednesday from 2 to 3 is my office hour in the afternoon. My office is right through that door. It's 104B, though you probably could find me here or in my office or over there, or if I'm around, I'm around. So what are we going to talk about in this class? You all signed up for this class. Chances are you read a little bit about what the class is about, or at least you talked to some friends, etc. We're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff. And the truth is, we go through it rather quickly. I try, however, to instead of just giving you the complete instruction on how to use Photoshop, I try to boil it down to this is what you need to know to be successful as a design student using Photoshop. So we're going to focus on the stuff that you really need to know and ignore the stuff that you really don't need to know. So we'll go through Adobe Photoshop. We'll start with that. How many people have experience in Photoshop before? Generally, I get the most hands with Photoshop. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Now SketchUp, almost everybody raised their hand for SketchUp. But Photoshop's pretty easy. We'll talk a lot about digital photography. We'll talk a lot about collage and how do you meld things together. How do you make things look like they belong together, that sort of thing. That'll be in Photoshop, which we'll start in. We'll talk about Adobe Illustrator a little bit later in the semester, which is a drawing program. It's a vector-based drawing program. We'll talk about what it's used for, why it's useful, and we'll do a bunch of drawing in it. Those of you that were in my 136, you know that I threw a little Illustrator at you at the end. It's valuable. And so this is where you really learn what Illustrator is and what it can be used for. AutoCAD we will also cover. Some of you, how many people have taken a course in AutoCAD before? Okay, so you took a full semester at least of AutoCAD. It's a really complicated program, so it's unrealistic for me to teach you everything you need to know about AutoCAD in 3 weeks. But what I'm going to focus on in AutoCAD is getting high-quality drawings out of AutoCAD, probably the pieces of the puzzle that they didn't teach you in the AutoCAD class that you need. So how do you make a good drawing? How do you get it to print? How do you get it to scale? All of those kinds of things are critical. We'll talk about line weights and those things as well. So the assignments will be rather simple, but the output will be good. So we'll talk about SketchUp. It's a slide. It's a slide. Yeah, there you go. We'll do SketchUp. We'll do some basic 3D modeling. SketchUp is important. It's a good way of visualizing. But we'll also talk about how SketchUp folds back into the other programs. So you might do some modeling work in SketchUp, bring it back into Photoshop to do some collage work. You might do some work in AutoCAD and bring it into Illustrator to do some fine-tuning of line weights and stuff. So it's a lot about how these pieces of software interact and blend together to create the best output. We'll also deal with Adobe InDesign. And InDesign is really the best program for graphic layouts, setting up boards, setting out books, portfolios, all of that sort of thing. So we'll spend a lot of time in graphic design talking about Adobe Illustrator. There is a handbook for the class. It's supposed to be listed, but I don't know whether it's officially listed on the bookstore. I submitted it, but you never know these things. The difference here is that it's a publish on demand. So if you order the book, they print it for you and send it to you. So rather than having a stack of books in the bookshop. It's available on lulu.com, which is the online publisher. If you do lulu.com/spotlight/DTFA, it will take you to this page, and you can get the Digital Tools for Architects handbook. If you already bought it, like if you were in 136 and you bought it, it's the same book. So I try to save you money where I can. Furthermore, if you do a search for Lulu coupon codes or free shipping or something like that, if you can get a discount, great. Right? There's no reason not to try. So it's there. Bring it with you every day once you get it. It takes a week to get to you, but then bring it with you. If you take notes in it as we go through it, it will be really helpful long term because you'll be at Berkeley and you'll be, how do I do that clipping mask in Illustrator? Oh yeah, I'll look back and there's all my notes about how you do it. So it can be a really useful tool for you. And obviously that's why I want you to have it in the first place. There is also a recommended textbook for the class. This one is not required, so you don't have to go out and buy it. The reason that it's not a required textbook is it's really only relevant to the InDesign portion, the graphic design layout portion of the class, which is only 3 or 4 weeks long. So it's great. It has a huge amount of information about graphic layouts, but it's short. It's condensed. So if you feel like you've got a little extra money in your book budget and you want to have a great book to have on your shelf as a reference, this is awesome. It's the Layout Workbook by Kristen Cullen. It's really, really good at explaining layouts. A lot of the slides that I show when we're in that section come from this book. So it's recommended but not required. Yeah?
How much are these, the digital tool for architects?
The Digital Tools for Architects book is, I think, $30-ish, and this one is about $30. So compared to your $150 calculus book, it's pretty minimal. Okay? So you got to weigh things. I mean, one of the great things about being in the design field is when faculty require books like this, they're always interesting. They're always full of pictures. They're fun, as opposed to your calculus book that you can use as a doorstop later on. This one you'll actually keep and refer back to as you go forward, which is one of the benefits of it. So the all-important grading part of the class. Obviously, this is the part you all care about. You've ignored everything that I've said until I got to this slide, and you say, oh yeah, this is important. Okay? So your grade is based on the following. By the way, there is no final exam. There's no final test for this class. You will have a final portfolio, so it's a project, not a test. So I'm not going to sit you down and say, I want to see how quickly you can do a clipping mask in Illustrator. No, I won't do that. Okay? So how do we get to your grade? First off, we're going to have lab exercises, and those are going to be worth 20% of your grade. You'll do those every day in class. You'll even have one today. So it's that frequent. Then you'll have your assignments. These are done outside of class. They're worth 40% of your overall grade. And I'll go into each one of these in a little bit more specifics as we go forward. Your final portfolio, that final project that I was talking about, is worth 30% of your overall grade. And finally, you have a participation point. That means, are you here? Are you asking questions? Are you doing your comments? Those kinds of things make up your participation grade. It's a great way to just boost your grade a little bit. Okay? I try really hard to keep this course a very consistent workload. You kind of always have about the same amount of work to do. So in the design field, you guys will become more and more familiar with this if you're not already. You have these ebbs and flows in your work process. You have these giant cram sessions of, oh my God, I've got a project due and I got all this work to do and I stayed up 8 nights in a row and I haven't eaten and I'm jittering because of how much coffee I had, etc. That's not for this class. This class is meant to take with one of those classes that you're all stressed out over. So this is nice and even. You come to class every day. Most of everything you could do is in class. And then you might have a little work to do outside the class. And that's going to vary person to person. So I'm trying to keep it nice and even. I'm trying to make it a companion to one of those studio type classes. So lab exercise, let's go into these in a little bit more detail. This is what I said you're going to do every day in class. So the lab exercises are worth 20% of your overall grade. They're designed to be completed during the lab portion. So I said that second half of class is the lab portion. So we've got 2 hours. I'm going to give you something. This is what you're going to be doing for the next 2 hours. You're going to work on it. You're going to try things out. You're going to experiment with them. The end result may be really, really ugly. Perfectly okay. You learned. So it's based on a pass, not pass system. So you're here, you do the exercise, you get credit for it. It's the ugliest thing ever. You made the worst color choices possible. Still get credit. You did it. Okay? This is where you should feel free to have completely open-ended experimentation. This is how you learn. It's important for you to have that. So all you have to do is complete it, and you'll get credit for it. It's due at the end of the lab period. There's a couple rare instances where it's not due, and we might hold over and work on it more the next class. But generally speaking, it's due on the day that we have the lab at the end of the lab period. Okay, that's kind of how it's set up to be. Exercises are a pass, not pass grading system, which we already talked about in a little bit more detail. Assignments, on the other hand, tend to be larger. They tend to combine multiple things that we've done in exercises. So, for example, the first assignment will be a photography assignment. You'll be post-processing an image. You'll learn a bunch of techniques over 3 or 4 days of class, and then you'll have this assignment due. You're to apply those different techniques, deciding which ones are good and which ones work for you, not necessarily all of them. And then you'll turn in your assignment, and that will be one of the assignments that make up 40% of your grade. In this class, there's probably going to be 6 assignments total plus the final. So if you do the math, each one of these assignments is worth maybe 6.5 or 7% of the 40%. So you can kind of figure it out. Okay? They're based on the skills that you used and your overall design. How good did it turn out? So this one's a little bit different than the pass, not pass thing. You actually have to do a good job. It can't be hideously ugly. Okay? That's the point. It's an assignment. The other thing that I offer, and I struggle with this every semester because sometimes it works really well for people and other times it's just kind of ridiculous. And hopefully this will work well for you because I haven't cut it out just yet. And that is that for every one of your assignments, you will get a grade back. If you don't like your grade, you can do a resubmit of that assignment. So this is for every one. If you have those 6 assignments, you can do this 6 times. So let's say you did your first photography assignment, you turned it in, and you got a C on it. You didn't like it. You're like, I can do better. Okay? You can, at the end of the semester, turn in a new assignment 101, which is your first assignment, and I will pretend that your first one never existed. Pretty cool. Okay? You can get a fresh grade on it. Now, here's the trick. When you submit that one, and I pretend that your first one never existed, your grade can go up or it can go down. That's the only fair way of doing it. So you're not guaranteed that your grade's going to go up. 90+% of the time your grade goes up because chances are you read my comments, you understand why your first grade wasn't so good, and you've probably improved it. But you can't just kind of throw another image and pretend that you improved it. The idea is that you are actually trying to improve your grade. You can also do this only once. So you can't do this multiple times for each assignment. You only get one regrade for each assignment. And it's at the end of the semester. So every time you get a grade sheet, you still have that bad grade on it. And at the very end of the semester, after I've calculated your entire grade, then I'll go back and look at the regrades if you've done any. Okay, that's the way it works. Okay, so those are regrades. All regrades occur at the end of the semester. You can post them earlier if you want. They don't have to be posted on the last day. I just won't grade them until the last day of class. Okay, that makes sense? Regrades make sense? Try to be really clear in the beginning. The final portfolio. So the final portfolio is the end project of this class. It's supposed to be a culmination of your work. It's going to show all the work that you do in this class, or at least all of the assignments that you do in this class, but it can show work that you've done outside of this class. You're in 121. How many people are in 121 this semester? Okay, usually, there we go. That's about right. So you can choose to include a bunch of your 121 stuff in the portfolio. Actually, you probably should include a bunch of your 121 stuff in the portfolio. And we'll talk about portfolios along the way. So you get a bunch of instruction about portfolios and how they're assembled, etc. I'll give you specific instructions as the semester goes along. You guys don't have the skills yet to do it, so there's no reason to give you too much information about it. You'll get that portfolio assignment in about 8 weeks or so, a couple months in. This is a project for you to do on your own. Okay, it's the final project of the class, therefore it's a test, so to speak, of your abilities. It's something for you to be working on kind of over the last 2 months of the semester, kind of continuously. There will only be limited time to work on it in class. So while everything else has lots of lab time, this is kind of on your own. So once you get that assignment and you start working on it, you should kind of always be working on it in the background. You should always be adding things to it, etc. We'll have a few dedicated days where I'll talk about it and we'll work on it. I'll sit with you, we'll look at it, etc. But if you want like a red line version, you want me to go over your portfolio, print it out, make an appointment in office hours, and I'll sit there and go with you. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of the semester and having a terrible portfolio. Okay? I've had students in the past who have gone into the final portfolio just sailing through, right? They're getting an A, they like their grade, etc. They don't spend time on the portfolio, they don't work on it, and they turn in something that was kind of barely put together. Guess what? No A for the class. And they've come to me after, what happened? Well, how much time did you spend on your portfolio? Well, I did it the night before. Well, that's what you get. So this is something that does take time, and you do have to put effort into. So no big. We'll talk about it more when it gets a little bit further along in the semester. So course participation. After every exercise in this class and after every assignment that you turn in, you're going to need to do comments. And I mentioned comments earlier. This is on the course website. You're going to do these comments on the website for 3 of your fellow classmates. So you turn in your first assignment, assignment 101, you go in and you write comments for 3 of your other classmates. Now, it's really important that you write good quality, constructive comments. Okay? I've actually put a limit on it. It has to be at least 25 characters long, so you can't say nice, sweet, great job, done work. Okay? What I'm looking for in a nice constructive comment is something along the lines of your use of the diagonal compositional technique really improved your photograph. That's a positive one. Maybe the photo's not that good. You know, maybe you should revisit the compositional techniques and adjust your composition to improve your photograph, because it's really not following the rule of thirds, which is, I think, what would be great for this photo. That's a good comment. That gives people feedback on what's working and what's not working. Okay, so, oh wow, it's really pretty. Not a good comment. Does that make sense? Good quality constructive comments. You're going to give 3 after every exercise and after each assignment. If you get in the habit, and I'll help you with this in the beginning, you come in, you get here at 8. Generally, I start talking at about 8:10 or so. Okay? You've got 10 minutes. You sit down, you turn on your computer, write 3 comments. Easy. You do that, you won't be behind. Right? Chances are, if you've already taken one of my classes, you got behind on comments at some point. Right? So there's a couple of you nodding your heads, right? If you get behind on comment, it's kind of a pain, isn't it? Yeah. So the best thing you can do is to try to do the comments as you go. It's not that hard. Just get in the habit, and I'll remind you in the beginning, hey, it's time to do comments right now. Until I get ready to talk, it's perfect. You can write 3 comments, 3 good quality constructive comments in 10 minutes. Totally doable. Okay? And then you're not behind, it's easy. So those comments are worth half of your participation grade. So they're 5% of your overall grade. And I'll give you an update. This class usually runs about 80 to 90 comments for the semester total. And you'll get updates along the way, and you'll know how you're doing as you go forward. Materials. So this class is great. There's not a lot of materials required. You're not going to have to go buy a bunch of cardboard or mat board. You don't have to go to the art store or any of that kind of stuff. However, you do need to have a flash drive for these computers. How many people have taken a computer class here at DVC before in the engineering buildings? Okay, a couple of you. If you haven't taken a class here, food for thought. You're working on your stuff and you save it on the desktop. Power goes out, computer restarts, work gone. Okay, every one of these computers is frozen, so if it restarts while you're working on something, that goes away. If you've saved it on the desktop, it goes away. That's the way they secure these computers. So you need a flash drive to make sure you save your work on something. We will talk at length. I'll get to you in a second, Nancy. We'll talk at length about how do you back up your work. If you want to use OneDrive, which I'll encourage you to do as a backup process, no problem there. If you use OneDrive and download it to the computer and then wait for it to download each time you come in, at some point in the semester, your download process is going to be too long to kind of sync, and it's going to be really annoying. So it's better to have a local copy on your flash drive. So I recommend a 32 gig or larger flash drive. They're so cheap now. I mean, I remember when I was in grad school, I got a 1 gig flash drive, and it was like $150. It's like, oh man, I've got this, and of course then, 2 weeks later it goes through the wash and you ruin it. But anyway, 32 gig flash drive is like $5. Like, that's not a big deal. Okay, so get yourself a good large flash drive. If you want to use a hard drive, that's fine too. A lot of people like to use hard drives. That's totally fine. All right, it's up to you. Don't break it off in the computer. I've had students do that. Don't, et cetera. We'll talk about safeguarding it and not making it go through the wash. Nancy, you had a question.
Well, you almost answered it. What I need to know is there's another way to save things on the computer, to Google.
Google Drive, yeah.
Okay. Are you going to show us how to do that?
I'm not a huge fan of Google Drive, and yes, I will talk at length about these. It's actually next class that I'll talk at length about it. But on a little side note, I'm not as big of a fan of Google Drive because these lab computers won't allow you to install the Google Drive software, and it's not your computer. It's just hard to make the sync process work. It doesn't work as smoothly as Dropbox or as OneDrive. OneDrive, actually, because these computers are all on Windows 10, seems to work the best of all of them. So I'll show you other options, but I'll kind of emphasize OneDrive. You guys as students, I think, get 25 gigs for free anyway. So that should cover most of what you're doing in this class relatively easily. So we'll talk about that at length next class, but I still strongly encourage you to have a flash drive or a hard drive. I think it's a really good thing. If you want to order it on Amazon, that's okay too, right? You guys are all students. You can get Prime for free. Comes in 2 days. That works. Or you can go to any one of the Staples or, bookstore, etc. You probably pay more at the bookstore. But anyway, they're so cheap it doesn't really matter. Digital camera would be nice, though the truth is all of us have phones that are awfully good. So if you want to use your phone, that works. In the old days where you had like your Razr flip phone, not so good. Now the cameras in a smartphone tend to be pretty good. So we can work with that if necessary. But if you have a good high quality camera, we'll have you bring it, because a good digital SLR does take awfully nice images. And so we'll talk about that. Yeah. That's okay. We'll get you images. We'll let you survive. All right. Continuing on. So attendance. Attendance in this class is mandatory. You do have to be here. Yes, I post all my lectures online. Yes, I post all the exercises online. It doesn't mean that you can just decide not to come. Okay? This class is a face-to-face class. It's not an online class. It's not one that you can just do remotely. You have to be here. You have to be able to ask questions. The truth is that we're going through so many things, and I'm demoing so many different techniques in the software, that you at some point in the semester will A, get lost and not understand what I'm doing, or B, realize that you have a really important question to ask me. If you're not here in class, you can't stop me and say, can you do it again? Or ask me that really important question. So both of those require you to be in class for you to be able to do. Therefore, attendance is mandatory. You need to be in your assigned seats. That'll happen next class. And you have your computer turned on and ready to go at 8:10. I don't want you to be sitting trying to boot up and whatever when I'm talking, right? Once I start talking, it's important that you pay attention. You don't want to be working on your computers. So it's really important that you're here to be considered on time. And I set that 8:10. Remember, 8 to 8:10 is a little bit, oh, I'm running late today or whatever. It's okay. I'll start talking at 8:10. You can still make it by then. But you're going to have to catch up on those comments. So that first 10 minutes is for those comments. Okay? I will take roll every day in class. For the first couple times, I'll actually read out all your names. After the seats are assigned, okay, so next class we're going to assign seats. You can pick your seats. I could care less where they are. But that will be your seat for the rest of the semester. And it allows me to take roll by seats, which is much faster for all of you. You don't have to listen to me call out names and all that sort of thing. I take roll by seats. And the way that I do it is I take roll randomly sometime during the class. You don't know. It could be at the beginning, could be at the end. Right? Generally, I know who's late, so I can mark you as late. You get docked for that. But at some point along the day, I'll take roll. If you ran out to get a coffee or you ran out to go pee or something, when I take roll, I'll see you when you come back in. I think in all the semesters that I've been doing this, maybe once per semester I mistakenly miss somebody and I catch it. But 99% of the time I get everybody. So it's really not a big deal. But it also means that you need to be here and working until the end of class. Because I might take that roll at 10:49. And you don't know when I'm going to take it. Does that make sense? It's a way of keeping you all honest and being here. Okay, that's the idea. If you finish early, there are going to be some of you that have worked in Photoshop before and are breezing through the Photoshop section. It happens. There are others of you who will be in Photoshop and who will be struggling for every little bit that you're doing. It's the way it works. Actually, I should probably use Illustrator because Illustrator is the one people struggle in. You'll be sitting there struggling trying to get that clipping mask to work and it won't work. Okay? That's normal. You all have different skills coming in. If, however, you're breezing through the Photoshop section and you're done, and there's an hour left in class, chances are there's some other class with some other project that you should be working on. Almost all of you raised your hand saying you were in 121 this semester. So I can tell you right now, on any given day, there's probably something for 121 that you should be working on. It's a fair assumption. Okay? So you need to still be here. You can be doing something else, but you still need to be here. And guess what? It's actually kind of convenient. You're working on 121, and you're stuck on something and it's not working the way you want, I'm here. You can ask me. Works out okay. Okay? So, don't leave early. This is the other half of your participation grade. Are you here? Do you stay the whole time? Okay? That's the other 5%, which gets us to the full 10% of your participation grade for the class. So, if you miss 2 or more weeks of class, so 4 class days, I reserve the right to kick you out and withdraw you from the class. That's at my discretion. So I can choose to do it or not do it. That's why I say may. I may do it. Sometimes you have a legitimate reason. Sometimes you have doctor's notes. Right? I'll make exceptions. But you'll be behind if you miss that much. There's a lot that will pass you by. If you don't finish 3 or more of the assignments, chances are you're not going to pass the class, and you, again, may be dropped from the class, or you may receive an F. Okay, so here's the doom and gloom speech. I have to give the doom and gloom speech on the beginning of every day, or the beginning of every class. So, all of you are here. This is a college class. It is my opinion, it actually happens to be a strong opinion, that because it's a college class, you're responsible for yourself. Don't rely on somebody else to hold your hand. It's really important that you take this seriously. If you don't feel like you're doing well in the class, withdraw yourself from the class. Right? If you keep getting grade sheets back and you're behind, you're way behind, and you're realistically thinking, can I get caught up? And the answer is no, withdraw yourself from the class. You can take it again. That's the beauty of DVC. You can withdraw and take it again. Okay? I don't like to kick people out of class. I would rather trust that somehow you're going to get your work done. Okay? The problem with that is it's very likely that this part right here is going to come up. Okay? Because you didn't quite do it. Or maybe one step higher than that. Maybe it's a D. Neither of which anybody really likes. So, take responsibility for yourself. I try, as it approaches that last day to withdraw at the end of the semester, I forget when it is in the spring semester, it's like the end of April or something. I try to send you little nudge reminders, like, guess what, you're not doing so well. Maybe you should think about, do you really want to be in the class? Okay? But you're responsible for yourself. It's really important that you understand that. I'll treat you like it's a college class, you treat me like it's a college class, you decide if it's important for you to stay in or not, you decide if you want to do the work. Okay? So, enough doom and gloom. I'm not a mean guy, I promise. But I want you to take this really, really seriously. Okay, so due dates will be announced in class. No surprise, they'll be on the course calendar. You get plenty of notice. Usually in this particular class, unlike the 136 where there's a long lead time of an assignment, I give it to you a month before or whatever. In this class, it's usually a week to 2 weeks. That's about all you get for an assignment. It's pretty quick, but that's the nature of the class anyway. Exercises will be due at 10:50 on the day that they're assigned. We talked about that a little bit before. Assignments will be due at the start of lecture. So before I start talking on the day that they're due. So let's say, for example, that you guys had something that was due on Wednesday, next day of class. You don't worry, don't panic. Okay? But let's say, hypothetically, you had something that was due on Wednesday. You would have up until the time I start talking on Wednesday, which is probably going to be about 8:10, to turn in your work, to post your work. If you hadn't posted it, it would be subject to the late work policy, which I'll talk about in a second. If you do post it, all is good. And the reason that I do this is I don't want you to come into class, oh, I made it. Okay, sweet. Okay, oh yeah, I got to post my assignment. And meanwhile, I'm talking, and you're posting, not paying a word of attention to anything that I have to say. Okay? That's not what I want. I want you actually engaged in what I'm talking about. So, it's due before class starts, therefore, all is good. Okay. So, let us continue. Where am I? Okay. Key things. Sometimes I will ask for a printed copy of whatever it is. I like to keep some paper records just in case computers crash and whatever. The paper copy is not the official copy. That's just a reference. The post, the online post, is the one that counts. So you have to make sure that is turned in on time. So late work policy. Okay? This is really, really strict, and I will adhere to it. Okay? If, for example, we had that project that was due on Wednesday, which again it's not, don't panic. Okay? We had that project that was due on Wednesday, and you turned it in at 8:15 on Wednesday. Guess what? You're subject to late work penalty, which means if you had an A on the assignment, it's now a B. So you drop 10%, one letter grade. If you had a B, you drop to a C. For every subsequent day that it's late, not physical day, but class day that it's late, so you didn't turn it on Wednesday, you have until the following Monday before class starts to turn it in at 8:10. So let's say you missed that one. It now drops 20%. You drop 2 letter grades. So you had an A, now you have a C. You get the idea. Okay, so it's very strict. After 4 days late, let's say you just didn't do it and you didn't get around to doing it, you can still get half credit for the assignment if you turn it in by the end of the semester. I'll still give you that 50%. Okay? The reason that this is so strict is because in life, in the architectural world or in the design world, you will have a deadline. You'll have to have finished your drawing set because you're going in front of the Design Review Commission and they have a strict meeting deadline, and in order to give the proper public notice, they have to have your full packet by 4 p.m. the week before your scheduled meeting is going to be, or your public hearing is going to be. If you turn it in at 4:01, you don't get to go to the meeting. They won't present your work. It's that black or white. So in this world, you have to get used to the idea that there's a deadline. And therefore, in this class, there is a strong deadline. And you're strongly dissuaded from being late. Okay? So let me give you a hint. So don't tell anybody. Okay? This is critical. Is it better to turn in really bad work on time and do a regrade? Or is it better to be late with your work and turn it in better later? Turn it in. Turn it in. Don't be late. Okay? Don't tell anybody I said that. Turn it in anyway. Okay? This is important. Turn it in anyway. Give me something to grade, and you can always do the regrade later on. Okay? That's the way this class works. No reason for you guys not to work within the system that I've designed for you. So, other stuff. Yeah? If you turn it in late, you can still do a regrade, but the late penalty applies. So let's say you turned it in late and you got a C on it. It was 1 day late. You got a C on it, so it dropped down to a D. You could still do a regrade, but the highest grade you could get would be a B. So that's as good as it gets. Okay? So the late work always applies over the top of everything else. So this is a computer class. Computer classes are always challenging to figure out how to teach because there's a bunch of different people at a bunch of different skill levels, and there's a bunch of stuff that we're trying to learn. That's the nature of it. So there is one of me, and there's 31, maybe 32 of you. The ratio is such that I can't always get to every single one of you all the time when you immediately need me. Okay? So rather than doing this, waiting for me to come, right? Lean over and say, hey, Nancy, do you know how to do this?
No.
Hey, Ro, do you know how to do this? Right? The idea there is that you can ask somebody, you can ask your neighbors, because there is actually a high probability, Nancy, that you might know how to do it. I have faith, right?
Yeah.
So the idea there is that instead of sitting there, falling asleep, waiting for me to come around, at least ask your neighbors, right? Pull out the book, have a look. Pull up my lecture that I recorded from last semester. See if that helps you get through it, okay? It's not because I don't want to help you. It's that I don't want you sitting there wasting 30 minutes while I get from one side of the room to the other side of the room, okay? I will try my best to get with all of you. And you know, those of you that were in 136, I do try. I do try to sit with you, and I try to make sure we get through what you need to get through. But there's a lot of you and only one of me. So don't forget to ask your neighbors, maybe ask Google. I mean, there's a variety of solutions to get you unstuck and keep you going. Okay? And sometimes you just need me, and I understand that. That's okay. I strongly suggest you take notes in your handbook. That will help you stay organized, keep your thoughts together when I'm actually talking about it. Remember that I do record all the lectures, or at least I try really hard to. Sometimes it crashes and I don't have the recording for that. But I also have a bunch of back recordings of previous lectures that are similar. So I might have gone through it a little bit differently. I might change it a little bit, but you'll get the idea of what I'm doing. All of those are available on the course website. You can go back and watch it. The other thing that I've found that helps students sometimes because it's a computer class and because I go through things rather quickly, sometimes people will pull up the video afterwards and they'll watch small segments. They'll watch a minute of it, pause it, do some work for a while. Go back and watch the next minute, pause it, do some work. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, that's part of why I do it and part of why I record it. The channel on YouTube is youtube.com/digitaltoolsforarch. Everything's posted there. I try to cross-link to the website so that you should be able to find all of it cross-linked as well, but sometimes a little bit off. Everything for this class will be in the 100s. So that's my way of keeping things separate. So you'll have exercise 101 today. This is lecture 101. You'll have assignment 101. Okay, everything's in the hundreds. The 136 class, everything's in the 200s. So you guys in this class can safely ignore anything that starts with the 200. Okay, that just helps keep everybody organized. Watching the recording is not the same as being in class. If you watch the recording, you can't stop and ask me a question. If I'm doing it live, you can stop and ask me a question. That's why being in class is important. Everything's licensed in this class under a Creative Commons Share Alike license. If you have questions about this, you can ask me. It basically means that we're all happy people and we share with each other. Fair enough. It's the way class has to be. So let's look through a bunch of student work from previous semesters. It can't hurt to show you some examples. These are actually older examples, but you can see more on the course website, and we'll go through those in a little bit so that you can see what previous semesters have done. We'll go through, and we'll talk about basic compositional techniques. How do you set things up for a particular view? What makes a good composition? What makes a bad composition? We'll talk a lot about post-processing. How do you bring out colors? How do you bring out good contrast ratios? All of those things are really important, right? How do we blur the background in a photo besides using the iPhone 10 with portrait mode on it? You know, how do we technically do these kinds of things? That's really important. It's important for you to learn these kinds of techniques because you as a designer long term will have to photograph your work or represent your work in a creative, nice way using these techniques. It's a great strategy for how you work through your work. Then we'll move into advanced photo editing. This is where we combine things that don't belong together. We'll do it first in an abstract context where we blend things together that don't belong together. We defy gravity. We change the world that we live in. But this is really a precursor to learning how to collage in Photoshop and how to make things look like they belong together even though they don't. How do you add a bunch of tattoos on somebody if you want to? These are the kinds of things that you need to learn. Because sometimes they turn out a little creepy. But because these are the kinds of things that can teach you a lot about collage and a lot about how do you represent your ideas. And that's what we want you to learn about. That's one of my favorites. Then we'll move into layouts and graphic design. And so you're all in 121. You're going to have to do a bunch of posters for 121. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how do you do these graphic designs. We'll do a lecture series poster where you'll have to arrange a bunch of different content. How do you create a strong hierarchy that gets you interested in reading what the brochure is about, that gives you different levels of interest as you move up to a particular poster, etc. And how do you organize that content such that it's interesting and grabs your eye? And you can see just in flipping through these, there's a lot of different layouts. And some work better than others. Then we'll move into drafting. And a lot of you have done these kinds of things already in AutoCAD, but we need to do some drawing. We need to have some way of technically drawing something. We'll talk a lot about views and how do we lay out various views in AutoCAD. How do we create these kinds of sheets that are then printable at a particular scale. We'll talk through all of those. We'll talk about collage, adding color, adding shadow, those kinds of elements as well. Then we'll get into SketchUp. I told you we needed to do a little bit of SketchUp. In SketchUp, we'll do all the basic building plans, sections, elevations, plans, etc. But we'll do a lot of collage work. Put the building into context. How do we collage these two pieces together such that they belong? What are the lighting conditions in one scene versus another scene? How do we make those match? And you'll learn a bunch of techniques for integration, etc. So we'll flip through a few more of these. So I'll end with the question of what will you create? And I think it's really one of the fun things about teaching a class. Okay, so I've been here 10 years, or a little more than 10 years. I've taught this class every semester for 10 years. That's a lot. That's 20 versions of this class that I've gone through. Okay? Which you guys are sitting here saying, wow, don't you get bored? Right? And the truth is that I don't. And it's really weird. You would think that I would get bored. And are there moments where it's like, oh, I really don't want to do that lecture again? Yeah, of course. Okay? But what makes this class fun and what makes this class exciting is every one of you. And it's the fact that you guys bring something different. I don't know what this class is going to be like yet. I don't have a sense for you. You're not particularly talkative. You know, you're all kind of controlled. I don't know what you're going to be like. But you're going to bring something to the table. You're going to bring a conversation that I haven't had yet. And that's part of what makes my job interesting, is I get to interact with every one of you. And actually, this one's pretty fun because I don't have a lot of repeats. No offense to you guys that I've had before. But because I don't have a lot of you yet, I don't know anything about you. And I get to learn all about your design process and all about how you think, and I hopefully will be able to inspire you to do a better job at your design process and to think more about design and to be excited about it. And so that's part of what brings what you give to me. And I'm really excited about that. Okay? So hopefully you're excited about it too. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. So come back at about 9:25 or so. I'll walk you through registering for the course website. You'll do your first post, and we'll do our first exercise, which is exercise 101. Chances are it won't take the full time. It'll probably take you 30 minutes to an hour, and you'll be free to go. You don't have to stay all day for me today. But I do want to make sure that you're registered, and I want you to make sure that you are familiar with the website and all that sort of stuff. So please come back in about 10 minutes. Go grab your coffee, etc. If you're going to eat or drink in this room, remember there are computers. If you spill your drink on top of the computer, not good. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So just put a lid on it or something. Okay? I recognize it's a morning class, and all of you are late night people because you stayed up, way late the night before working on studio. So you're going to need coffee. I get it. Bring it in. Just put a lid on it. All right? Okay, so we're going to get started up again. Couple minutes after I said, but close enough. And you should have all received your exercise 101 handout. Okay? This one here. So this is separate from the syllabus. You all got the syllabus. Basically, the syllabus has all the same information that I talked about before on it. This is your exercise for what you're going to be doing. If you've taken one of my classes before, you already have an account. There's no reason to change your account, so you don't need to re-register or anything like that. If you've never taken a class, you're going to end up registering today, and I'm going to show you how to do it. But before we get into that, I want to walk through a little bit about the course website just so you're familiar with it, you have an understanding of what's here, etc. This is digitaltoolsforarchitects.com, which is not a school-sponsored site. It's a separate site that I pay for, that I host myself. I have my own servers, or rent my own servers to do it. Somehow on the first day, sometimes it has issues and then it resolves itself, though everybody seems to be working on it just fine today, and it hasn't crashed or anything on us, which is good. But anyway, we're going to go through it, and I will talk you through it. This is separate from Canvas. It's separate from Insight. It's a separate login. When you do your registration, you can put in whatever email you actually use. You don't have to use your Insight email or anything like that. So it can be whatever works for you. So this is the Digital Tools for Architects website. Under About, you'll see, for example, you're in Archie 135. There's a few things that I still need to change. This should say Digital Tools for Designers, and then this should be Digital Tools for Architects. They changed the naming of the class a couple years ago, and I haven't caught them all yet. It used to be Digital Tools for Architects 1 and Digital Tools for Architects 2. Now it's Digital Tools for Designers, which is 135. That's what you guys are in, and Digital Tools for Architects. So you'll still see a few cross-references that I need to fix. I'll make a note to fix that one. Anyway, so you're in 135. There's your syllabus. There's a calendar. This talks about the calendar feeds. We'll talk about that next class. And it gives you other information, too. If you want me to write a letter of recommendation, for example, this is what you need to do that, etc. Then we move over into the Lectures tab. Again, you guys are going to look for the 135, which is the first one here. You guys are in spring of 2018, but notice there's a bunch of previous semesters. If you want to look at any of those previous semesters, you can do that as well. You're in the spring of 2018. When you click on that link, it will bring up this page, which right now there is only Lecture 101 available. There's no other lectures available just yet. And it gives you a link to the YouTube channel, etc. If you were to click on Lecture 101, you would get this, which is the Lecture 101 page, which is today's lecture. And there's a note saying the lecture is not yet available for spring 2018 because I haven't had a chance to upload it yet. I just recorded it. I haven't uploaded it. I will do that later today. And the actual video will appear above this, and this text will go away once I have the video. But again, I don't have it quite yet. Then under previous lecture videos, these are all the previous lectures. Now, for the course introduction, I don't think you're going to go back and watch the course introduction for the fall of 2015. It's probably not very likely. But if you really wanted to, you could actually watch that. And so these are a bunch of links that go back. Now, when we go forward in the semester and we're doing the Photoshop post-processing or whatever, if I haven't posted it yet, here's an opportunity to see the same, roughly the same content that that I had in a previous semester or whatever. So you can click on that and view that as necessary. As you come down here a little bit more, these are the actual PDFs of the slides that I show. So if you wanted to see the PDFs, sometimes the color on the projector isn't as good as it otherwise could be. So if you want to pull up those slides, there's a version that is 1 slide per page, and there's also a version that has 4 slides per page if for example, you wanted to print it or whatever. So it varies a little bit depending on what you're interested in. Well, this looks like 1 slide per page. It was supposed to be, but you get the idea. It's a PDF, and it has all the stuff that I went through on it. OK, so that's there. As we move over, let's see if there's anything else. No, that's it. As we move over, by the way, if there were some links or something, if I referred to a video or if I referred to something in the lecture, obviously the links would be there. So you could click on them as well. The next category here is tutorials. These are the tutorials that the book is based on. So sometimes online I have videos that accompany them, so they're there as well. So for example, if I went to Photoshop and I went to this Photoshop 1.2 for levels, it would pull up the Photoshop 1.2 levels tutorial. And in this case, I have a video that walks through what I talk about, but then I also have it written out with a bunch of images and little colored circles and that sort of thing to help you guys follow along with what we're trying to do. Okay, so I try to present it in a lot of different ways so you can get the content, which is the important part. Obviously, you can see from the list there's a bunch of different software here. The Rhino and the V-Ray sections are for 136, so you guys won't be concerned with those. But the rest of it you'll be working with, except probably Vectorworks, which I don't think anybody should be working with, but that's a side topic. They're all available there. At the very end are what are called the assemblies tutorials, and this is where we start to combine things together. So for example, if we were doing SketchUp, Photoshop in sections, this is a lot longer. It goes on and on and on and on and on. But it's to help you figure out how to put everything together. And within something like this, there's usually references to a lot of other tutorials that you can kind of follow together. So that's a bigger context, but I like to at least point out that they're there. As you move over, we get the Exercises tab. You guys here, it says Digital Tools for Designers. That's correct. You're in the spring of 2018, so if you were to click on that link, this looks an awful lot like the Lectures page, where we have Exercise 101, Course Registration and First Post. This is what you're doing today. This matches the handout that you guys just got. So again, it's available here. I don't keep handouts more than the day. So if you're not here on a particular day and you come up and say, can I have the handout for last class? I won't have it anymore. I just recycle them after class. It's too much paperwork to keep track of. You can print it again if you want. When you click on Exercise 101 here, it'll bring up the text from the exercise. Notice that if there are any links, the links are usually set up as actual links. So you can just click on them, which is good. At the very bottom will be the download of the PDF. So you can click on the PDF and download the PDF, and that matches what was printed and handed out to you as well. So again, it's all there. So if you need it, it's there for you. So this is what we're going to be working on today. A couple other things. When we get to assignments, you'll see right now under assignments, it only goes up to the fall of 2017 because I haven't actually given you assignment yet. But same thing will happen. The assignment will be posted there, and you'll be able to go from there. Resources are a bunch of other stuff that you may need down the road, and we'll talk about that when it happens. But they're there. For those of you that took the Rhino and V-Ray class, you're already familiar with going there for materials. But there'll be more stuff for this class that's there as well. Under student work, for example, we can come in here and see, oh, these are assignments that people have done. Show me all the assignment 101s. So if I were to click on that, it would show me, here's all the assignment 101s. We can go back through in time and see what people have posted, etc. Same thing happens for if we went into exercises. There's exercise. This is the exercise 101 that you're doing today. If I were to click on this, it would take us to the exercise 101 page. These are all posts that people have made in previous semesters. They're in reverse chronological order, so the further back you go, the longer ago they were posted. When you guys make your post today, it will show up in order as part of this page. Okay, it's all automatic. I'll show you how to categorize it, etc. The last tab over here is the login tab. And this is where you guys are actually going to start doing stuff today. If you click on the login tab, you'll get this page right here, which asks you to log in. You guys probably don't have a login just yet. And because of that, you're going to click this button at the bottom for register. And when you click that button at the bottom for register, you get this page that says registration for this site. It's going to ask you for a username, an email, and an invitation code. The invitation code is right here, and it's also on the other side. It's in all caps. You guys can go ahead and type that in. When you use your email, it doesn't have to be your actual student email, your Insight, or whatever the college email. It doesn't have to be that. It can be whatever email you actually use. When you pick your username, try to pick something related to your actual name, because if you don't, I still have to be able to find you and know who you are, and it's really hard if you put some other name in and I don't know who you are, and I have to kind of sort that out. You guys will also see on the last page of the syllabus, okay, there's this little survey thing that I'm asking you to fill out today in paper form. It asks about what you know, and it helps me tailor the class just a little bit for what you're doing. Notice that there is a blank for your username for the website. Okay, so put your username that you use to register. That's also a way of me cross-checking who you are to make sure I get you correct. Because again, I do all my grading through the website and that sort of thing. So I need to make sure I know what your username is. So when you do that, make sure that you fill out what your username is. And then you'll go ahead and click on the register button. Now, when you click on the register button, the website, it's run on WordPress, which is a software package that runs this whole website. It runs the back end. It will send your email a link with a temporary password. And it's probably a password that's rather nasty in characters and whatever. You'll need to copy that password and use it to log in, and then you can change your password subsequently. We'll have a whole nother lecture about passwords, but that's a side topic. If you go in and you check your email, so let's say you register using a Gmail address, you go into Gmail and you're looking for this email that has your password in it and you don't see it, make sure you actually click on your spam folder, because it might have been automatically routed in your spam folder. I try to make sure it doesn't happen, but Gmail really likes to put it in the spam folder. So if you're not seeing the email, look for it in the spam folder. And if all else fails, because I'm an administrator, I can manually set you up if necessary. So we're going to make sure that everybody is actually registered for the website. And I'm getting a bunch of emails flying through right now, notifications that you guys are all registering. So it appears to be working just fine for you. So once you've gotten there, you're going to actually log in using your username or email address and that password they sent you. And once you have actually logged in, it will take you to something called the dashboard. Let's see if I can get here, which will look like this. Okay? You'll get a black bar across the top of the page everywhere, and you'll get this kind of side column here, and it should look something along these lines. So I'm going to pause for right now, and I'm going to walk around and see if I can get everybody registered. If you're already registered, it's just the first day. It's the way it's going to work. Things are going to be slow today, but I need to make sure everybody's here before we get on to the next part of today's exercise. So hold up for a little bit, and we'll keep now. All right, so thanks for bearing with me while we got there. I think everybody's pretty much logged in, so that's good. If you don't like the nasty password that they sent you, or it has some character you can't find on the keyboard, nor that I could find on the keyboard, you can change your password to whatever you want if you go to Profile. So you should be in the dashboard right now. If you're not seeing the dashboard, if you go to the bar at the top of the screen here, let's see, you would have the site. The black bar is still there. You can click on Dashboard. It'll take you to this screen. My account right now, this is a student type account, so it should look the same as what yours looks like. Obviously, I have an administrator account that has a bunch more options and that sort of thing, but I don't want to confuse you, so this should look like your account. If you click on where it says Profile, about halfway down on the left side here, this will take you to your profile. And some people like to change their color scheme options and whatever, which of course you're welcome to do if you want. As you continue down here, right here, you have the ability to put in your first and last name. So I would strongly encourage you to do that. It helps me find you. It helps other people know who you actually are. So if you put in your first name and last name, that would be great. And you can also choose to display your posts as your full name if you want, or your username. That's, again, up to you as you go forward. Obviously, it has your email in it, etc. We'll talk about these other links a little bit later down the class, so don't worry about those just yet. And as we keep coming down here, there'll be something here for new password. If you want to change your password, you have to actually click Generate Password, in which case it gives you some random password. But then you could type in, you can select it and delete it and type, whatever you want the password to be. Okay, and that will then update your password. If you pick something that's not a particularly good password, it will tell you that it's a very weak password, and you have to check this box to confirm that you want to use the very weak password. Okay, again, passwords we'll talk about next class, etc. But you can, name it whatever, or make your password whatever you want it to become. When you're done, you're going to click on the Update Profile link. Obviously, I'm not going to update my password to temp123, but you guys get the idea that you could update your password and or any of the other options that are here. There are a few other things that are built in, like proofreading, that can help you with your writing and that sort of thing. And you can choose to turn those proofreading techniques on if you want. You don't have to, etc. So that's there and available for you. Now we move on to the next part of what you're going to be doing for today. And that is that we're actually going to create your first post. So you should be through all of part 1 now. And we're going to move on to part 2, which is creating that first post. To create the post, at the black bar, no matter where you are, you're going to see a little New button. And you'll go to New and then Post. And it will take you to the New Post page. Your other option would be to go to Posts and then say Add New. Either way will get you there. But usually the quickest way is just to click on the New Post button up here. I'm going to go ahead and leave the page because I don't want to change. And this then brings up the Add a New Post. It gives us a little warning here that says this entry has no featured image. Please select one. Every time you're going to be uploading an image as part of your post. So we will do that before it allows us to post, which is why the Publish button over here on the right is grayed out. So I can't actually publish it yet because it's not complete. So we'll get there. And if this seems a little bit overwhelming, I promise you it's okay. The first couple times I'll walk you through it, and then it'll become really, really easy. Those of you that were in 136, does this become really easy long term? Yes. It's very repetitive, and it will be easy. Okay, so for right now, we're going to make a post with a link to some kind of an architectural article that we think is interesting. Design, let's expand it a little bit. Some kind of a design-related article. So if you like interior design, you like product design, you like architectural design, you like graphic design, whatever it is, find an article online that looks reasonably interesting. Maybe it's about a building. So for me, maybe I'd go to ArcDaily, and I'd say, wow, this is an interesting looking building. And I might spend a little bit of time looking through the pictures and deciding, yeah, this is actually pretty cool. Like I'd like to write a little summary on this. Okay, so if this is in fact the one that I want to pick, yeah, this is pretty interesting, I'm going to do a couple things. First, right, I need to know the name of the architects and or the building. So I'll go ahead and copy that. So I just selected it and right-clicked it. And I'm going to go back to that new post. Here's my add new post. Let's put it down here at the end. And I'll say that'll be what I'll use as the name. Okay? And then I'll write down here. So there's the title of my post. I could also say this is exercise 101, for example. Even if you don't include your name, I'll still find it because I'll know what your usernames are. Okay? Then I might come down here to the content section, and this is where I might write a little summary about the building. Right? And I think this part of what makes this particular building unique is obviously this cut that goes through and the change of materials between the two buildings. So I might write something about, you know, I find this building particularly clearly I can't type. Something, you know, blah, blah, blah. Okay? You guys don't need to have me go through this whole thing. Then I might come down and I might say link to the original article. And this works a lot like Word or something that you're working on, where you've got some various options. So for example, I could take the link to this article, I could make it bold. Then when I put the link in, so I'm going to come over here to the article, I'll copy the whole thing. There's the web address. Again, I just selected it, and I right-clicked on it and said copy. And I'll come back to my new post, and I'll paste my link right there. Notice, though, that it's not an actual link yet. It just looks like the text of a link. So I'll select it and click this little chain icon right here, which will allow me to make it a link. It automatically selects it and uses the text as a link. And I'll click apply. Now it's that blue that we're used to seeing as part of the link. I could take this little bit of text. I could put a bullet point in front of it if I wanted to in terms of formatting. So it's a lot like Word, right? What you see is what you get, etc. There is the availability to, if you like HTML, you could actually write the HTML. Nobody ever does it, but I'm pointing it out that it is there should you want to. So we'll be in the visual tab for the most part, and there it is. So I have a little summary of what I think is interesting. I have a link to the article. Then I need to add this featured image, right? So an image that represents the post. So in an ideal world, there'd be a Creative Commons image of this that I could use and attribute. Chances are there probably isn't one. So I'm going to try to copy this original image. Let's see, save this image. Of course, it's going to make me register, right? Which I don't feel like registering. So I'm going to use the snipping tool to just take a screenshot of it, because that's easier. Oh, but I don't want that part of it. Hold on. Let's get rid of that. You could, of course, register for the site as well. New. All right, so there it is. And I'm going to save it to the desktop. So let me save as. And I'll put it on the desktop, and I'll click Save. Of course, I could register, and I could save the image. That's the other option. Or I could do a Creative Commons search or a Google search for the actual building. Come over here at search.creativecommons.org. I can see if anything, yeah, nothing's showing up there. I could look in Google Images and see if I could find anything. Yeah, I'm not being particularly successful. It's not the most famous building in the world, so using one of these screenshots is probably my best option at that point. Or again, I could register. So let me go back to the post itself. Here it is. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, on the right side is something for featured image. It's right over there. I'll click on the text for set featured image. And this brings up where I can upload the image. And I'll go ahead and click on the upload files. It's this tab right here. I'll click select files. I'll go to my desktop. There it is. I'll click open. And it'll finish in just a second. No, because you probably haven't found the article yet. So there it is. And I'll go ahead and say set featured image. I'm going to come around and help all of you to make sure you get this done. So if I lost you a little bit along the way, no worries. We'll get you there. It'll then show up here as the featured image. There it is. That's what I'm after. And as soon as that happens, you'll see that I could actually publish it. And that warning goes away at the top. So it's looking for that featured image. So the last thing that I need to do before I can actually, quote, turn in the assignment, or the exercise in this case, is I need to categorize it correctly. So again, on the right column here, you'll see a tab for categories. And if you scroll down here, you will see exercise 101. And remember, we're looking specifically for exercise 101, not assignment 101. You haven't been given assignment 101. This is exercise 101. So I'm going to check the box for exercise 101, which puts the category correct for this. And at that point, I'm done. I have my summary, I have my link, I have my featured image. I can just go ahead and publish this post. Publishing is a lot like turning in your work, right? So you click publish, it's now officially on the website. So there it is. You'll see here at the top it says post published, and I can view the post. So if I click on view post, I'll see there's my little summary. It'll have my name over here on the right. There's my image, and there's the text, and there's the article to it. Furthermore, if I went back to that student work section, remember this page, and I refreshed it, there's my post. It showed up right there as part of the list. So that's all automatic. It'll happen. If we were on the main page of the website, and you scroll down here, the most recent post, I just made the most recent post. There it is on the front home page. So it automatically shows up where it's supposed to show up, which is what I want. Okay, so you're going to be responsible today for creating your first post and making sure that it actually shows up. You can go back and edit your post if you want. If I went to the dashboard and I went to posts, all posts, it will show all the posts that I've made. Obviously, there's some from previous semesters, but there it is. I could go back and edit it if I caught a spelling mistake or something, etc., and I could update it if necessary. Okay, so I'm just showing you those things, kind of food for thought. I will now come around and make sure all of you actually get your first post accomplished. Once you have your first post made, you're free to go for today. Obviously, come back on Wednesday with your flash drive, and we'll keep going. We've got the categories done. If you don't have your flash drive, go buy it. That's your homework, because I want it ideally on Wednesday. Again, if you don't have it or it hasn't shipped or whatever, you'll survive without it. But it would be nice to have it so you can start setting it up. Yeah? Question individually? Okay. I will be there to help you guys individually. Like I said, once you make your first post and you've published it, you're free to go for today. We are not going to do the comments on this post yet. We'll do them first thing on Wednesday, so we all do them together. Okay, because you will be doing comments. I want to kind of train you in how to do the comments and whatever. One key thing about comments is you want to make sure that you're logged in before you make the comments so you get credit for the comments. Okay, so that's not a big deal. We'll do that next class. Okay, for those of you that are not in the class yet who want to join, I'm going to help everybody register or get their websites done. You should do that as well as if you're going to take the class, if you're planning on taking the class. And then I'll sit down with the roll, so you're going to have to give me 10 minutes after I finish with everybody. There'll still be enough time before next class, and then I'll work on ad codes for you guys. Okay? So just bear with me. I have to make sure that people aren't here and that sort of thing. Okay?